Yes, I think this is an interesting topic because it always starts with the why. Like, why should we do this? So why should we help our friends? Why should we, collaborate on something? I think the benefit of this, you don't see this like in one day. I think the mistake that we could do is like we contribute to open source, and we expect something back. So I will not go for that. So maybe this is what open source is not. So it's great. I think it can really help for interviews. For example, at daily.dev, there is one person who contributed to this open source project. By the way, daily.dev is an open source project, and now he's working with us. So this is, for example, is a great benefit. But you should not do this just to get hired. It's just, I like to think about this like the secret weapon. Like you do something that can really be your secret weapon for something. Not only that. It's not something that you do this and you get that. It's very similar to the mindset that we should have, for example, on social media. So like, I mean, we don't help someone just expecting something back. Otherwise, you will get very disappointed very soon. So that's it for now.
That's a really great point, and I also believe on that. So, handing over mic to Santosh, and what's your thoughts on why anyone into tech should and power of the open source?
Hi, Padam. Thanks for hosting this. And yeah, actually, it's a really good question. I think why everyone should empower the open source. I mean, I think the open source is the future, right? And it is actually the present as well. I mean, everyone is actually building on open source. So we need to actually go ahead and support the entire ecosystem. Good thing is now a lot of people have started doing that, which was not happening a few years ago. I remember. I mean, just take from for me as an example, right? I started my career back in 2008, and I didn't give a damn about open source for many years. I mean, the missing part was education. No one was actually talking about it, especially in countries like India, which which actually generates most of the open source most of the developers, right? I mean, if you see India, it's a huge country with a lot of developers doing like writing code, but in country like India, it was actually the education was not enough for around the open source. I mean, of course, once you pass out of the college, the thing is to get a good job, and that's it, get settled, that's it. No one cares about open source. Now people are talking about it because everywhere you, like, whatever project you take nowadays, you are using something which is related to open source. For me, I think the drawback was .NET really came late into open source. I was a .NET developer, and I remember when I started my career, people used to say, use Java, it's open source." I was like, why? I mean, it's okay, right? I mean, it doesn't matter what I like .NET. I mean, it doesn't matter if that's Java is open source or something. But I was not aware of the value which open source brings for the companies as well as to you as a developer, right? You get to learn a lot of things if something is open source. I mean, you get to actually see the code base, and companies get the advantage that they don't have to pay for things, right? I mean, but they have taken for granted now. A lot of companies have taken this for granted that they don't need to pay, which is again something which I don't like. So you might have seen my tweets that I always talk about. Okay, this is so I had a like I'd written a blog post in past where I actually came up with this idea that okay, why shouldn't like big companies, like I'm not talking about the small companies, but because they are doing it, so a lot of startups have actually uh, s- built open source libraries. They are supporting open source libraries, but most of the tech works in large organization, right? I mean, especially in India, like companies like TCS, Infosys. So I came up with the idea that okay, why not to have one developer supporting an open source project behind every 100 developers you have? And they have a huge like they have huge number of developers, right? I mean, if you are aware, not only in India but across the globe. But let's hope things change. A lot of companies have started investing into open source. GitHub sponsors program is actually giving them chance to actually go ahead and support open source. Still not people are still a lot of companies have. I'm not sure why they are stopping themselves, but yeah, let's see. Let's hope. I mean, things change, because if they don't, I mean, someone needs to support this open source developers, right? I mean, they are not doing it for free. Free, right? In free in open source does not mean free work. It means that, okay, free is something that, okay, you can go ahead and take this code and build whatever you want, but it's not free. It's not free when it comes to money. Someone is actually investing their own time, and hope people realize that.
That is some really great points by you. And just want to point out one thing. Yes, companies are changing. For example, home automation company, I will not name that. Recently, famous YouTuber quote that we are not able to automate our house due to certain firmwares are not supporting. So there is a tweet out, and within 7 days, the company open source their firmware, and that also got featured in GitHub's YouTube channel as well. So yeah, companies are changing, but I will be more likely to be happy if some big MNCs and companies in India are moved towards. Yeah, thank you for putting the point, Santosh. Yeah. Handing over mic to Graham to put your input on open source, and you are also working in a company called Daily Dev, which is completely open source. And
I always feel like an imposter when it comes to the open source stuff, because I've contributed in other ways, but it's only recently I've started actually making pull requests on things, and I've not done many of them, So I've contributed a lot to like Stack Overflow. That's my way of doing open source in the past. Everything I did was closed source. But if I was doing everything again now, there's a lot of selfish reasons that I would do open source, and this is the thing that people don't talk about, because it's all about community, and I love that aspect of it. But this is why I would do it from a personal perspective. First of all, it's a great way to learn. Like if I was looking at learning a new language or a new framework, I would look at something that's open source, have a look at what problems they have on the issues list, and I'd be like, right, I'm going to tackle something on there. There's nothing better than getting your hands dirty on something. Great way to contribute as well as learn at the same time, and you get to see a hopefully well-structured project that you can learn from. Secondly, it's a great way to network with other devs. Like we're up here all the time saying you must network with other devs. It's a great way to find job opportunities and make new friends. Well, open source communities are just other devs that also want to connect with you. And if you're contributing to something they're passionate about, you're very likely to become friends with them. And who knows, that might lead to other opportunities. And finally, you can obviously use it to research the companies that you might want to work at. Francesco mentioned the fact that one of our employees came to daily.dev because they made a load of contributions and were like, oh, we need someone. This person knows the code base. They jumped the whole queue. So if you're interested in working at a particular company, find something that they've got that's open source and start making PRs. No guarantee, but at the end of the day, if you get an interview, you'll have something interesting to talk about with them as well, because you'll be like, oh yeah, I was working on that part of the project. Like you're already part of the team at that point. So those are my sort of 3 selfish reasons to get involved in open source software.
the last point I really liked. I think if you keep counting the points and the list goes and goes on, because the community and the people are totally empowering that. Yeah, yeah. Passing over mic to the Santosh. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Pradumna. In earlier days, open source was more of counted as like doing some free work for others, right? So most of the companies never wanted to actually give their work for free, especially large companies like Microsoft, right? So Microsoft came really late into the open source because they wanted to sell the product. They wanted to sell everything which they had. Eventually, of course, everyone knows that Satya Nadella came in, and then the culture changed. And when Microsoft took so much time, I think we can expect the same from others, right? There were many companies. I remember I was having a conversation with Rob Armold from Google in 2020 when we met at a conference. So he went to Japan. He went to Japan for like consulting with a client, and then the company for where he went actually to talk about Angular, they really don't. I mean, when he spoke about like open source, right, and open source and all those things, I mean, he said that you are actually building some nice libraries. Why don't you make it open source? And they were like, why should we make this available for free? And Rob actually told him something that, okay, this is a shame because you are like using Angular for free, and then you are not giving it anything back to the community. And I mean, I'm not sure I'm sure most of you know that Japanese people take shame as like big word, right? I mean, so the person who was there in the meeting, he actually called him back after after almost a year and said, look, we are the first company in Japan to actually open source our internal UI libraries. And those things will happen eventually. I mean, people need to just realize, our companies just need to realize that whatever they are using nowadays is free. I mean, it's their responsibility also to make sure that others are being what you can say, other also get the work they are doing, because of course they everything they used is free, and they're helping someone else, right? I mean, they're passing the things which they have learned. So it's something people companies need to understand. It will not happen in a day or in a decade. As you said, you started your own GitHub account in 2012. Lucky, I mean, I created my account in 2015. I was, as I said, I was a .NET developer, so I hardly had idea about open source. Yeah, but it will happen eventually. It will happen. It will take time. Still, it will still take time. I'm not sure how much time it will take. But the good thing is all these new companies, right? I mean, you see every new company is like they are trying to build in open. It means they have something in open source. They have some open source projects. Even companies like Stripe or PayPal, they have like their at least open source their SDKs, which can be used for free, at least just for, let's say, POC or something, right? Earlier it was not available. So yep, that's what I think.
We've also got to my left as I look at it, but it might not be for you. We've got Francesco with the open source Web3 repository. They are two great places to be able to make contributions, especially EdiHub, because EdiHub is focused on getting people into open source. They have loads of clever ways of getting you involved, loads of explanations. They have a special tag for great first issue, I believe it is, which is specifically designed for people who just want to make that first pull request and actually get involved, but it's not too scary and it's just a nice manageable thing to do. So Eddie's sat there, you can send me money in the envelope after for promoting EdiHub, but obviously that's a massive easy way to get into open source, and there are similar projects out there. So yet again, jump in the 4C community. I'm sure Francesco can point you in the direction of Emma Wayne, not Emma D, who's in the audience, and you can contribute towards the Web3 open source initiative as well. So yeah, I'll let Francesco tell you more about that, because obviously I'm butchering it right now, and it's his little project.
I have more experience as like creating some small open source project. I've also made some contributions in the past, and yes, it requires some a lot of work, we can say, because if we want to be completely honest, if, for example, I've been, for example, when I started working on Web3, I could have taken like keeping everything I was doing on private, then maybe, I don't know, trying to make something which is paid, or maybe just, let's say, hide what I was working on. Instead, I've done the opposite approach. So I've basically made everything public. So all my posts are public. Everybody can, in quotes, steal what I create, all my threads, or my tips. But I got a great advantage from this, because some people started to notice me, some people started to contributing to the same open source repository. So I can say that probably 2 years ago, I would not have done this. I would have kept everything private, secret, and because yes, it was my content. But at the end of the day, I think that open source mindset, you get way more benefits. I mean, I'll be in less than 2 months. I've been invited in a Web3 conference in India, and I'll stay there, and I'll probably meet also some amazing people. So I don't think that I would be invited if I would not have open sourced that project since the beginning.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So just want to welcome Eddie on the panel. Hey Eddie, how is your day going?
Hey everyone, I heard a few people mentioned open source, so jumped off a client call and came straight here. Super excited. Pradumna, great to see you hosting a space. Great to see Graham, Santos. Probably not, to be honest. I think it's great to see different people's perspectives, but I'm happy to start off the conversation. Thank you so much, Pradumna. I think you've got to add value, and I'm specifically not saying adding code. So I think it's really important to add value. I see people adding value in communities and projects from different points of view. So even just going through the backlog and saying this is a duplicate, or this has actually been done now, let's close this issue. You might not be able to close it yet, but you can help the maintainers keep it tidy. And then when they start seeing you doing that frequently, consistently, and consistently is really, really important, not just a one-off. Eventually, they're going to say, hey, can you do this? But there's no need to let us know. You can just write a message and close it. Or reviewing pull requests is super, super important and valuable. You can review a pull request even without being a maintainer on the project. You can't merge it, but you can still review it, leave inline comments, leave overall comments and suggestions and so forth. So I think it's just focus on adding value. And it's hard to find a balance. I think some people think adding value is by making lots of notifications for people. That's quite the opposite. You don't just want to do the bare minimum and just make lots of noise, and then the maintainers then kind of really they don't want to block you because you don't do anything bad, but they kind of want to almost mute you because you're making too much noise notification for them, and we do get that as well. So I think think about what you do and make sure it adds value without too much noise and notification. To give one kind of simple example, if you left a comment on an issue, for example, but you left kind of one-liners in 3 or 4 different comments, then that would be a bit noisy. A lot of notifications where you could edit your existing one, or you could put them all in one, but in bullet points or something like that. So I hope that helps. Basically, add value, and you will eventually get selected to be a maintainer. And don't say things like some of the things I get. I should make like a post on this. Quite funny. I'm a maintainer on over 100 projects. I should be a maintainer on yours. That doesn't help me. If you're a maintainer on 100 projects, you're not a maintainer on any project. So there's silly things like that that are quite funny that I could maybe share some of the. Obviously, keep it anonymous. But
I contributing to ADF for a while because I think my first project and the most contributed projects are ADF projects, and I think I contributed around 2 to 3 months on the ADF project. Then some maintainers and some project contributors referred me, oh, this can be a maintainer. So I think if you keep adding the values, your contribution will never go wasted, because there is always need of good maintainers and good people who welcome other contributors and and maintain those projects well. So yeah. I think I really like one point, one of our idea, one of the greatest member, Naomi, which always say that contribute to the project which you are using or creating impact in. You don't change your contribution pattern or style to the other project. For example, if you are contributing to some projects which are not matching to your tech stacks, at the start I will prefer to contribute to those projects which you are using. For example, if you are working with Angular, you can contribute to Angular. If you are working with for example, if you are using product like daily.dev or Gitpod, try to contribute on those products. I think changing tech stack, because you have to learn whole project scheme as well as whole project idea to contribute to a single project. Yeah, that's my input. I think passing over mic to Daddy. Yeah.
I think it's a different way to look at that. So Pradumna came up with some really, really good points. And I think it depends. I want to give an example, and then hopefully it makes sense. So the example I want to give is when I go to hackathons, I go to a hackathon with 2 different hats on. So I might go to one hackathon and I'm using technology that I know, and I want to collaborate with people who also know the same technology, because we want to try and push our skills in that technology, or create a really great idea, but we're going to go quite fast because we know it already. But I also might wear another hat and I'd go to a hackathon where I'm going to use a completely different technology that I don't know. I'm going to go very slowly, but I'm going to maybe focus on different areas of the project and learn a bit about that technology. So I think when it comes to contributing to open source, you can take that 2 point of view as well, where you can focus on one that you use and that technology quite well, and I think that's great. And then also maybe spend some time on one where you don't know that technology, because I think you'll look at it differently. You get to see how another technology does it. You probably learn from that. You can bring that over to the other projects you're working on. But also, I think you'll just look at it. You look at the documentation more, because you won't know as much. You'll ask more questions. You'll ask different questions. So I think doing both is probably a good way. Maybe, I don't know, 80, 10, or 20 rule. Do 80% on the one that you want to do, maybe the technology you do know, and 20% on the one you don't know, and see how that goes.
Essentially, the only thing that changed with open source software is the fact that your source code is open, and you've got a community aspect. Other than that, you're just like any other business. So you still need to know how to do marketing. You still need to know how to please your customers. The advantages are your software's likely to be more robust, because bugs are going to get fixed, and hopefully your documentation should be better, because people will be contributing and telling you that you're an idiot and you forgot an important step. Other than that, not much changes. And the thing is, if you've got something really proprietary, like you've come up with a genius algorithm that's going to change the world, you don't open source that bit. You can still open source 99% of your software, and you say, oh, we've got this black box that we've not outsourced, that we've not open sourced, because it's where we make most of our money from, and it's something we spent 4 years developing. So the answer to the question, as far as I'm concerned, is it's the same as any other online or SaaS or whatever type business. You still just find customers, please customers, and you make money. And that's generally how business works in a very simplistic way.
Graham, that was awesome. I think
your aim, if you've got a big idea and it's too big for you, and you think, God, it's going to take a while to get people to build it, is to build a minimal viable product that at least demonstrates what it should do. Even if it's not fully functional, you need to be able to sell the story to people, whether that be people who want to come on board and help you build it, or whether that be people who want to throw a load of money at you so that you can then hire people to help you build it. So you have to be able to show people, this is what it will do, this is what it will achieve, this is why it's going to work in the market, here's my market research, here's the team of people that I've got around me that can help me achieve this. It's the same as pitching anything else. You've got to basically get buy-in from people. So I think people overcomplicate it and think, I need something that's ready to go to market, and you really don't. You could have a few screenshots and a very good explanation, and 5 minutes of you explaining something, and you can get people to buy into an idea, and you can get that initial funding or that initial help from people, find your business partner, whatever that may be.
There are a few examples that come to my mind. When I was coming up on the stage, my audio cut off, so I might repeat one of them or two of them. The first one that comes to my mind is Supabase, which is kind of similar to AppWrite, I think. It's open source alternative to Firebase, basically. So it's a backend platform, and I don't think everything is open sourced. That's probably how they handle everything. But most of it is open sourced, so you can contribute. And I think the way they make money is again, a large part of it is open sourced, but they have advanced features for paid users and stuff like that. And then I think a similar model that comes to my mind is PostHog, which is an online, open source alternative to something like Google Analytics, and it's kind of the same model. The last one I want to quickly mention is Replit, which I used to work at. The main product is not open source, but they have this open source game library called Kaboom.js, which is like a simple JavaScript game library. So I think the way they think about it is the main thing is not open source, but they use this open source project to kind of as a marketing product.
I think the two products which I am currently using, which is one is Gitpod, another is FeedHive. I think Gitpod is one of the best example. They have subscription model as well as product style in there. So yeah, those are great.